Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 3 of my formal zombie portrait from my week 2 Inktober drawing. And in this video we're going to add the color washes. If you want to see how to use traditional materials for Inktober, check out part 1 in this series, where I have a list of some of the materials that you can use to do a traditional Inktober drawing. The app that we're going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android. And as you can see here, I have everything pretty much well detailed and drawn out the way I want it. And so what I wanted to do is add a little bit of some background texture here just to kind of react with the watercolor washes that we're going to use here. And I kind of wanted to start out with a neutral background color for this and just kind of make it a whole wash over the painting. And you can do this with watercolors if you're following along traditionally, and watercolor ink, or you can probably even use alcohol markers. So I just wanted to make sort of a neutral gray background, and I'm using the Marin brush because it makes a smooth wash in Infinite Painter. And one thing that I've learned is that if you hold your stylus down on the paper on the screen and don't let it up, it will make a really smooth wash and it won't leave any layers. But the minute that you let go or whatever, when you lift it up from your screen, it will do an overlay. So I like to do one full wash and then go back and maybe add some more texture-like look to it. And that's kind of what I'm doing for the background here. And I want the background to be red. And if you remember in part 1 of this series, I said that I wanted this picture to look like Basil Gogos' sort of movie monster posters that he has. And he uses all bright reds and greens and purples and yellows and just really bright colors. So I wanted to make this sort of a bright red background, and that would act as a color complement when I put on greenish and yellow looking colors for the zombie's face. And here I don't want a smooth background, so I'm lifting up my stylus and then putting it back down again and just letting it give a sort of a textured watercolor look. And if you're following along traditionally, you just let a layer dry and then add another layer with your watercolors, and you'll sort of get that same look. And I'm adding a little bit of some orange colors and a little bit of red. And then for the zombie's face, I went over it with a really light peach wash to sort of give it a flesh foundation look. And then I'm going to start adding all the crazy colors. So I'm adding some light yellows and some light greens. I just want it to have sort of a weird ghoulish look to it. And for the highlights, I want those to stay yellow. So I'm using the greens more for the mid-tones and for the shadow tones on the zombie's face. And of course, don't forget his neck area. You have to go ahead and add some yellows there and some greens there. I'm using sort of a darker green color for his shadows on his face, and then I wanted to put that color wash of green and yellow on his clothes as well, just to kind of have it for the highlight colors that will be showing through. And then I'll add a darker wash for his clothes and his hat. And so I'm just kind of working on that. And his hat, I'm adding the light yellow for the highlight there because I want the highlight to look light yellow. And we're just doing it like it's going to have a green light showing on his clothes, or a yellowish looking spooky Halloween lighting is what I'm going for here. And then I'm adding a little bit of some darker purples to the hat and the shadows, and eventually use black, but I want to go ahead and just add the lighter washes of purples here, and you would do that if you're following along traditionally for sure. Just go ahead and add your lighter colors, and then you can go dark. And that's kind of the way you have to work with watercolors. With acrylics, you can work from dark to light, but with watercolors, it's easiest to work from light to dark, which is a whole new way of thinking, but you just kind of have to train yourself to do that, and that's something that I've struggled with, but I'm finally getting the hang of it, I think, sort of. Anyway, you just have to keep practicing it, and then finally, when you start using watercolors, it'll become second nature to you. And so here I'm adding a little bit of a darker black color over the purple color, just to kind of get the color of the hat. And again, I'm using the Marin brush and Infinite Painter, and you probably could use a number 3 round if you're following along traditionally. And again, you can use watercolors or watercolor ink. You can even use Copic markers and use a colorless blender to blend in the darks and the lights together. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is just kind of blend it in a little bit with some of the lighter yellow color again, going back over it. And I'm going to leave his tie, of course it's white in the picture, but since we're going to have a creepy green Halloween light on it, then we'll leave it sort of a light green and a light yellow. And I also wanted to work on the frame and add sort of a light yellow ochre color if you're following along with your traditional paints. Just kind of a light yellow. We want to give the frame an antique gold look. And I've switched to the Turner brush just because it's a little bit more opaque. And I'm switching back and forth between the two, the Marin brush and the Turner brush. And I just kind of want to get that old antique look on this frame. And so I'm using kind of a little bit of a darker yellow here. And then I'm going to color all the curly cues with this yellow ochre color. And you just want to go ahead and color in on them. And I'm not using the symmetry tool this time in Infinite Painter. I'm just going ahead and sort of putting a quick light color wash on all the little designs there. It doesn't take too long. It's not quite as labor intensive to just put the quick color wash on. And then I want it on the mask at the top as well, because the whole frame for the picture is going to be like it's sort of a ornate gold, so we want the whole thing to be the same color. And then you want to go ahead and sort of add the shadows and the grooves to all the little curly cues and the leaf-like patterns that are on the side. And you can use probably a burnt umber color or just a raw sienna, something that's kind of a darker brown color if you're following along traditionally. You just want kind of a darker look here. And if you're following along traditionally, brush markers would probably work really well. In addition, if you just wanted to use alcohol markers, brush markers would work really well for this part. Or a number 3 round if you're just using watercolors or watercolor ink. And so I'm just kind of finishing up on the curly cues at the top and then under the bat wings and outlining the mask a little bit, just kind of accentuating that there might be some texture to this frame, that it might be sort of carved out of metal, or it's molded. It wouldn't be carved, unless it could be if you make it a wooden frame, but if this is one of those big heavy metal frames, then it would be molded. And of course this would be for, like, he's from a rich family or whatever, so that kind of gives that look. And then here I just want to add these little fancy scribbles on the side, because it's going to look like it's sort of an etching when we get to the inking part here. So this is the end of part 3 of my formal zombie portrait. And in part 4, that will be the final part, and we will do all the fine details with the ink and just finish up the picture in that part. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button, and thanks everybody for watching, and thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.